China and Taiwan are not standing on the edge of war by accident. They are standing there because history never ended. It only paused. What the world sees today as tensions is actually a 70-year-old civil war that never officially stopped, only froze in time and waited for the balance of power to change. When the Chinese Civil War ended in 1949, it did not produce peace. It produced two Chinas. Mao Zedong took control of the mainland and declared the People's Republic of China. The defeated nationalist government fled across the sea to Taiwan and declared itself the Republic of China. Both claimed to be the real China. Both swore the other was illegitimate. Neither side ever signed a surrender. That unfinished war is the foundation of everything happening today. For decades, China was too weak to retake Taiwan. Its navy was small, its economy was broken. Its priority was survival, not conquest. Taiwan, protected by the United States, quietly transformed into a modern economy. Over time, something irreversible happened. Taiwan stopped seeing itself as temporary China and started seeing itself as a separate identity. A new generation grew up without emotional ties to the mainland. They spoke differently, voted differently, and imagined the future without Beijing. China never accepted this shift. In Beijing's eyes, Taiwan drifting away is not just political loss, it is existential humiliation. The Chinese Communist Party built its legitimacy on unity, sovereignty, and the promise that China would never again be divided or controlled by outsiders. Taiwan's independence would shatter that promise in front of the Chinese people. That is why Taiwan is not negotiable for Beijing. Not now, not later, not ever. The United States understands this, but chooses ambiguity instead of clarity. Officially, America follows the One China policy, recognizing Beijing as the sole legal government of China. At the same time, it sells Taiwan billions of dollars in weapons, trains its forces, and signals that an invasion would have consequences. This contradiction is deliberate. It is designed to deter China without provoking it. But ambiguity is a fragile strategy when military power is shifting. China today is not the China of the 1990s. Its navy is now the largest in the world by ship count. Its missile forces can strike U.S. bases across the Pacific. Its air force trains daily for operations around Taiwan. Military exercises are no longer symbolic. They are rehearsals. Taiwan sees this clearly. It knows it cannot defeat China in a traditional war. It cannot match numbers, ships, or aircraft. Instead, Taiwan has adopted a strategy built on survival rather than victory. The goal is not to conquer. The goal is to make invasion so painful, so chaotic, and so costly that China hesitates. Missiles hidden in mountains, sea mines in narrow straits, drones, cyber warfare, and urban resistance. Taiwan is preparing not to win quickly, but to bleed slowly. The Taiwan Strait itself is both a shield and a trap. Rough waters, strong currents, and unpredictable weather make amphibious invasion one of the hardest military operations in existence. Any Chinese assault would require perfect coordination under fire. One failure could cascade into disaster. China knows this. That is why it studies Ukraine carefully. That is why it modernizes relentlessly. The world often asks when China will invade Taiwan. That question misunderstands the situation. The real question is when China believes it must. Time is not neutral. Every year, Taiwan's identity grows stronger and China's leverage shrinks. Beijing fears a point of no return where reunification becomes impossible without war. That fear drives urgency. At the same time, America faces its own dilemma. If it defends Taiwan, it risks direct war with a nuclear-armed superpower. If it does not, it signals to the world that U.S. security guarantees are unreliable. Japan, South Korea, and other allies are watching closely. Taiwan is not just an island. It is a credibility test. Then there's the economic reality. Taiwan produces the majority of the world's most advanced semiconductors. These chips power smartphones, cars, weapon systems, and artificial intelligence. A war over Taiwan would not be regional. It would shock every supply chain on Earth. Factories would stop, markets would crash, inflation would spike, modern life would slow down overnight. China understands this leverage. America understands it too. That is why both sides are trapped. War would be catastrophic. Peace feels temporary. Deterrence sits uncomfortably in between. The most dangerous part of this standoff is not ideology. It is miscalculation. Fighter jets flying too close, naval ships shadowing each other in narrow waters, cyber operations probing defenses, political speeches testing red lines. History shows that wars often begin not with intention, but with mistakes that leaders cannot walk back from. China believes history is on its side. Taiwan believes democracy is worth defending. America believes ambiguity buys time, but time itself is becoming the enemy. This story is not about if tension will increase, it already has. It's about whether restraint can survive pressure. Because once the first missile is launched, there will be no pause button, no negotiation reset, no controlled escalation. Only consequences. And the world will feel them. China's leadership watches Taiwan the way a clock watches seconds disappear. Every election on the island, every new poll showing stronger Taiwanese identity, every American arms deal feels like time slipping away. Beijing does not panic publicly, but internally the pressure builds. Power that is not used, in the logic of great empires, eventually fades. Xi Jinping did not inherit a weak China. He inherited a rising one. But he also inherited a dangerous expectation. Under his rule, China has centralized power, crushed dissent, tightened ideology, and promised national rejuvenation. Reunification with Taiwan is woven into that promise. It is not framed as conquest. It is framed as destiny. Taiwan understands this narrative, and it terrifies them, because destiny cannot be negotiated with. Destiny does not compromise. Inside Taiwan, daily life looks calm. Cafes are full. Tech companies thrive. Elections are noisy but peaceful. That normalcy is deceptive. Underneath it runs a constant awareness that the future is uncertain. Air raid drills are not hypothetical. Military service is being extended. Civil defense training is expanding. A society that once believed war was unthinkable is slowly being forced to imagine it. China's military pressure is psychological as much as physical. Fighter jets crossing the median line of the Taiwan Strait are meant to normalize intrusion. Naval drills that simulate blockades are meant to plant doubt. Cyber attacks target infrastructure quietly, testing reactions. None of this triggers war. All of it prepares for one. A blockade may be China's most likely first move. It avoids the chaos of amphibious invasion while strangling Taiwan economically. Shipping lanes cut. Airspace restricted, insurance withdrawn, food and fuel shortages appear within weeks. The world would face an impossible choice: break the blockade and risk war, or accept Taiwan's slow suffocation. America's response to such a scenario is deliberately unclear. U.S. war planners study it constantly. Breaking a blockade would mean confronting Chinese forces directly. Not breaking it would mean abandoning Taiwan without a single shot fired. Deterrence depends on uncertainty, but uncertainty cuts both ways. Japan is a silent but critical player. Taiwan sits close to Japan's southern islands. Any conflict would place Japanese territory at risk. U.S. bases in Japan would almost certainly be targeted. Tokyo understands that staying out may be impossible, yet stepping in guarantees danger. Japan's recent military reforms are not coincidence. They are preparation. China knows this too. That is why it frames the conflict as an internal matter. The message is simple: stay out. But modern war does not respect narratives. Missiles do not recognize diplomatic language. One of the greatest misconceptions about a Taiwan war is that it would be short. Many assume China would overwhelm Taiwan quickly. That assumption ignores geography, resistance, and escalation. Even a successful invasion would be brutal. Urban combat favors defenders. Mountain terrain hides weapons. Civilian resistance complicates occupation. Victory would not mean control. It would mean prolonged instability. And then there is the nuclear shadow. China and the United States both possess nuclear weapons. Neither wants to use them, but escalation ladders are unpredictable. If conventional forces fail, pressure mounts. History shows that leaders under existential threat consider options they once dismissed. This is why Taiwan matters far beyond its size. It sits at the intersection of power, technology, ideology, and fear. It is where global systems collide. China believes force may be necessary. Taiwan believes surrender would erase its identity. America believes deterrence can still hold. All three may be wrong. The most dangerous assumption in international politics is that rational actors will always choose restraint. Rationality collapses under pressure, pride, and misjudgment. Every great war begins with leaders who believed it could be controlled. The Taiwan question is no longer theoretical. It is operational. Plans exist, timelines are studied, capabilities are tested. What remains uncertain is the trigger. It could be a declaration Taiwan never intended as independence. It could be a Chinese military exercise that goes too far. It could be a crisis elsewhere that distracts attention. Or it could be nothing dramatic at all, just a slow tightening until someone snaps. When that moment comes, the world will not have time to debate history. It will react to reality. And reality, once unleashed, does not pause for diplomacy.